where are you going to move to now? And he said, I don't think I am. He said, we'll go back to Mexico full time until COVID passes. And he said, then we may not come back. He said, I may just sell everything I got and
just your own person.
live down here year round.
So now you can share your screen.
But I just wonder who bought it. It's not.
I guess you need to.
Yeah, I
not
just
a lot of
wonder.
people in Kingston buying
So she can
$1 million+ dollar houses.
I know it.
COK wires. All
Okay,
over.
well.
Hello, Kelly, can you hear me? Oh, I think good. We don't need that echo.
You're gonna hear an echo in both of ours are on. That's why Zoom is virtual.
Yeah, it's not next, right next to you. Let me go get my glasses.
Okay, you push to talk.
Yeah, you just turn it on.
Perfect.
So you got on the wireless. I would have to present on your desktop.
Yeah.
That's probably better, so my tech will do Kelly's.
Yeah, that's
David one.
Yeah, but then you need to mute it.
Yeah, you can, your microphone, you can just. Testing.
Work.
I was gonna jump, like, because we could do video on it.
Kelly, I don't know if you know, but there's a couple of books from Rockwood that are supposed to show. Yeah, Jason Jolly. And Carol Nice, the building inspector. We didn't have anything to do with that, but it's got forewarned. Everybody's in our little man.
Oh, do they need an icon?
No, they can come, but, we just need to know when they get in, I've got that one on there.
weird looking at you on video and in person.
I know.
I turn mine off.
Turn what off? Oh,
What's this KJ on there? Instead of my ugly mug.
oh, see, I'm muted, but it's still coming back through the,
You gotta turn down the volume on your computer. That's the reverberation.
all right, that's
Yeah,
better.
You can't, your mic, the way we got it set up, your mic doesn't work. So you talk, come through the mic, through the red box, sound system.
So just turn this volume all the way down. Will I be able to hear everybody else?
You said it'll be over the speakers. But
No, I mean, I've got,
somebody said,
ask a question.
yeah.
We'll need to turn it up for that.
See, I can hear Tony through.
Hey, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to mute this thing. Do we not have a bar across here somewhere, David?
Should be down at the bottom of that.
Yeah, if you scroll your mouse, a bar should pop up there along the bottom.
Well, I'm on an iPad.
Okay.
Turn it this way and see if that helps any.
Well, my problem is though, is I've got, that's how I have to get the sound through the OBS.
Well, that whatever you did turns your camera off.
Yeah, let me see. There it is. Down here it says plus. Let's see what this is. Allow Zoom to access your photos. I don't want to do that. Cancel. The email that I got on my computer, it wouldn't let me go to it. So I jumped on my iPad and it'll let me go to it. But I sure don't need to. I need to keep this thing cut off as much as I can, and I hate to do it by.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to mute it. Like I said, mine, when I scroll my mouse around a little bit, it pops up, but I don't know on an iPad how that works.
Every time I try to throw up, it gets me completely off. Here's one that says, I'll just keep it turned down. Well, that don't help any.
Yeah, Kelly, Brad's in there where Kelly is. He may be able to tell you how to do it.
Is she going to mute everybody, you think? I'll take care of it if they do it. Yeah, I don't even have I can't even get any kind of settings to come up.
I mean, he's saying at the bottom left hand that even on an iPhone or iPad, it should have a audio.
Much want. How many's going to be zooming?
Everybody, I think.
Oh, nobody's there at the office?
The mayor's in there, but he's on Zoom though, but he's in there in the council room.
So he's the only one that's in the council room?
Yes. Well, the only one on council. Kelly's in there too.
Okay. You know, when you get on the email that she sent,
Mhm.
and it's got the join Zoom meeting, and it's usually in blue. You just click on it and it'll take you right to it.
Yeah.
Well, my laptop won't do that. I can't get into it, and it'll take me 3 hours to type all those numbers. But
You highlight and copy and paste
uh,
into your browser.
you know how to, I've got it showing on my iPad. You know how to, Stephanie, do you know how to get the volume muted? That's what I'm worried about more than anything. But I don't even see where it, on the last Zoom I was on, I could see everybody else by clicking a button, and I can't do that here.
My mute button is on my my window of my face. There's a little mute button up there, and then at the bottom of my screen there's another mute button.
See, it's not even going over to you and you talking. That's what it usually does. Because if I'm like this all the time, I won't be able to see the presentation that they do.
Well, if you got your laptop, like Stephanie said, you could copy and paste that, or we can have Kelly try to resend you the email and
No,
maybe.
yeah, ask her to resend it to me. I don't know how to copy and paste.
Okay. Kelly, did you hear that? I'll go in there and tell her.
Yeah, Zane.
Now, do I need to unmute mine or not?
Your
Yeah, on the,
mic, you're gonna use this one.
not through the computer.
You hear that?
It's going to be interesting.
I knew it. You mentioned a meeting, and look what shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, these guys are from Rockville. It's never good right here. It's never, it's that look good.
Never. Hey, come here, Jason. Come here, Jason.
Tony, that should be coming to you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking good, cuz.
Same thing Kelly said. Still yesterday. Till yesterday, when she called me, we're in panic, we gotta do this tomorrow. So we came in and had some quality training time this morning.
Well, we're going to see how it works.
But we figured the night as a trial.
Yeah.
Before next week. Well, we've edged the bet for next week. So we're
Will they be able to hear us? That's what they will be.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's
You heard from Tara?
broadcast. So basically, we just took the Zoom meeting and rolled it up inside of OBS.
hair looks like a ghost.
Hey, can anybody hear me on the Zoom?
Yes, but you have a bad echo.
Yeah, we're working on it.
So Brad, the only problem is like, we will not, like, we have to all mute it, so we don't let it do it. If we just turn this off and just, would that go through the music?
Just turn that off and see. Just talk right there. Can you see him in OBS? He's not saying anything. Yeah, it's not the seeing part.
Test. So I would say let's not use the mics. Let's just use computer mics.
Well, even on, there's such a reverberation through the, on the,
We tested all this today. I mean, 3 hours. We had no reverberation.
well, I'm gonna have to unmute for them to hear me.
Well, again, we tested everybody through these today.
Yes, Mayor Neil, can you hear me? Testing, Mayor Neil, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're still having some difficulties. Hold on.
No problem, thank you.
That's why we.
But can anyone hear me out there?
I can.
I can hear you.
No, David can, because he can hear from in here. So now what?
So do you see it broadcasting through the OBS, right? So they should be able to hear us through. That's why I said we can turn the speaker up on that to be able to hear them respond back to us.
Yeah, you're coming through fine now. I don't hear an echo at all.
Okay. See, we're using the mics. Well, but the best thing.
Help if I went to my office. I mean, it would keep it from, I'll be able to talk and I wouldn't hear Kelly going.
The only issue
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm going to unmute to start it.
Okay,
Can
we're
you all hear me?
Everybody here?
Okay. Can you hear me, Tim? I can't hear you.
I should be able to now.
I see your mouth moving.
Nothing coming out.
It may be something I've done on this end, but I'm back on my big laptop now.
Stephanie, can you hear me?
Stephanie, can you hear me?
There you go. I've got you now. I've got static now.
Jim, this is Becky. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we got it. I'm gonna go and get the meeting called to order real quick. And I'm gonna step out and go into the office and see if I can get better. I don't hear stuff coming backwards over the speakers and stuff. So what I want to do is I still want to do the invocation and the pledge. And Mr. Brown, if you'll lead us in the invocation, I'm gonna have Ms. Jackson lead us in the pledge tonight.
Ms. Jackson, lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me? Our dear Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you with grateful hearts, thanking you for the opportunity to meet in a unique way to do the business for the citizens of Kingston. Lead, guide, and direct us as we go through this agenda, that we do the best thing for the people of our community. And most of all, we thank you for your son who died for us on the cross for our sins, and we give you praise every day. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna turn it over now. First thing on the agenda is a presentation by Path regarding LED street and ball field lighting conversion and energy efficient improvements. Russell Phelps, we'll turn on to you guys, and I'll go in the back a minute.
So I want to kick everybody off tonight. My name is Brad Taylor with Taylor Telecom Solutions. I've worked in and lived in Rome County and Kingston just about all my life, and I know every one of the council members and those that are on the meeting tonight. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about our company. We, about 7 years ago, got engaged with the city of Kingston to come in and start looking at cost reductions, be it around internet, telephones, voice over IP, and a lot of other projects. And so for the last 7 years, I've been working with the city of Kingston to help reduce expenses in any way that I possibly could. In looking out across the horizon, I looked at some of the projects that were out there that I thought were what I'll call low-hanging fruit, and the streetlight project was one that came up. I was very familiar with the Rockwood project, and tonight we have Jason Jolly and Harold Issam from the city of Rockwood that are here that we worked with on that project. We also do their IT work as well in Rockwood. But anyway, we started looking into this as a way for city governments, small city governments, to be able to go in and save money on what in some cases is a very absorbent expense for streetlights. From there, we looked at then what could the other projects that we could bring into that, be it public safety with some security cameras, Wi-Fi in the public spaces. So those were some of the things that we looked at. I reached out and looked around and vetted several companies to find that we could partner and work with, and Path Company was the one that I chose to work with. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Russ and his team from Path.
Hello, I'm Scott Gilmer with Path Company. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and appreciate the opportunity to respond to your RFP, and glad we have the opportunity tonight to discuss this project in a little bit more detail with you as well. Russ Phillips, who's the co-founder and principal of Path, is here with me as well. Russ is a professional engineer. He is the founder of Path, as I mentioned, but he started with, anyway, he's spent 15 years working with Train, and he saw the opportunity to do things a little better, a little more efficiently. And he, along with Nathan Wells, founded Path in 2017. And really, Path is a full service energy services company. We're comprehensive in everything that we do. We really pride ourselves on our customer service, 100% customer satisfaction, and better price points. We think that's really what distinguishes us from some of our competitors in the business. We do energy performance contracting, which is what we talked about a little bit in the past when we were here back in August. and that we look for opportunities to use technology to reduce cost while using those savings from money that you're already spending to tackle other infrastructure projects that you're looking at doing. So we want to talk a little bit about that tonight. Talk to you a little bit more about Path. Again, full service energy services company. We do LED streetlights. We're the largest company that has done done the most LED streetlight conversions in the TVA footprint area. But we also do buildings, anything with the envelope and energy efficiency, basically anything that has a utility bill. We look at and help you maximize your efficiencies there. Ball field lighting is another area of capability that we have. And then renewable fuel opportunities such as solar power, something that we work at. Since 2017, we have been a trusted partner for over 20 local governments or school systems or counties, primarily in Tennessee and Mississippi. You can see some of those here on the map, including a couple of those close by. Rockwood being one that Russ worked on.
Yeah, so everybody hear me? Let me just unmute it. Mute yours again. Everybody hear me okay? I don't have reverb. Well, are you muted? All right, I'll talk on here. So this, like, Rockwood was a project we worked with. Let me turn that reverb. When I was working for Train previously, I worked as a subcontractor to Train on that project. And so happy to talk about that project, but there's also several others that we've done as prime contractors, including Columbia, Chapel Hill, Collierville, Columbus, Mississippi. And not all of those were just streetlights, as Scott mentioned. So these are some of the examples that we've done with projects. I think one of the cool things, like these are some of the cooler projects we've done. Vicksburg, Mississippi was a full service. We were able to use the same all the air conditioning units. There are actually air conditioning units right there in that picture. Weakley County, Tennessee, we put in an all new HVAC. We actually did a bunch of mold remediation because they had some issues with indoor air quality. Tate County was one of the coolest projects we've done. It's the oldest continuous use courthouse. West of they always say maybe it's in the state of Mississippi. It's 1875. It's been in use. Their building was falling apart, and we used the savings with all the air conditioning. We did a roof with a 30-year warranty, and we rehabbed the envelope. And so I guess we could show you the before and after pictures, but it did. Chapel Hill, we were able to use the savings to add new lights at a park. And that's a picture of that park from a drone photo. And then the last one, I think you guys have a wastewater treatment plant. So this would be applicable. We actually found 3 zero cost, we call them energy conservation measures or ECMs, that'll cost $0 and will save them $60,000 a year from the operation of their wastewater treatment plant. And they came during the audit. We found those through kind of the due diligence phase of the investment grade audit. So those are just give you some flavors of types of projects we've done. I'm the lead engineer. I'm a professional engineer, so I'll be the one leading the effort for this project if we're lucky enough to get chosen. So.
And those are kind of representative projects of what we've done with other cities and county governments throughout the area, and we'd like to talk about how you can apply some of these same measures to help you here in Kingston. Obviously, one of the primary things you're interested in, and we've talked about before, is street lights. We appreciate having the opportunity back in August to be here and talk about our preliminary study findings and street lights. Obviously, based on that, we know there is an opportunity here for you. But just briefly, this slide show you kind of the difference between the traditional street lights that you currently have and what we have done. uh, in other cities where there's a distinct difference between the legacy traditional lights and the new LED lights on the right. There's a lot of different drivers and advantages of LED street lights. Cost savings among the top. Cost savings allow you to tackle other projects. There's obviously the aesthetic benefit of the city looks better, cleaner, clearer, crisper light. Performance, reliability is much greater. The LED lights are designed to last over 20 years. Public safety is a huge benefit as well. We've seen studies as well as driving around cities with police departments where they've noticed the difference in the street lights, just where the streets are better lit and less places for maybe nefarious activities to take place. And then environmental reasons, not only you're using less electricity, but if you're interested in dark skies and light pollution, you'll see how the light's much better focused on the roadway and less light over in the grass or going into space. Our approach to the next step with the streetlight portion of the project would be the investment grade audit. And we do a tremendous amount of work during that phase. With the investment grade audit, we'll send crews here to Kingston and we'll actually take a look at every single street light in the city. And we'll collect a large amount of data, as you see on the left side of the screen. We'll take data points on pole characteristics, the GPS location, pole identification information that's there now, arm length, fixture type, mount types, and things like that. And we'll use it to populate a database that we'll use to create a map like you see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And this tool, and we can show you an example live, but this tool will be a tool for the city because we'll leave it with you, but it basically shows the location of every single street light in the city. You can pull up and see the picture, information about it. But a big part of this isn't just changing out street lights, it's the engineering. The lights in the streetlight program that we're talking about will be an engineered design program. So basically our engineers will design the street lights for every typical, what we call them, but every representative type location throughout the city. So obviously you're gonna have more light on a commercial road or main arterial road than you'll have on a residential street. And that's something that we'll design as part of the process. As part of the investment grade audit, we will work with you and the city staff to determine some places in Kingston where we can do some mock-ups. These are from Columbia, Tennessee, where we are currently working with them on a LED streetlight conversion. There you can obviously see the difference in streetlights, but we will come out and install some mock-ups, and one night we'll invite anyone who's interested, anybody you would like to have included, to come out and be with us. And we'll go around and look at these mock-ups, and it'll be your opportunity to help us determine, the amount, appropriate level of light, the light color that you like, the type of fixtures that you prefer for the city as we move forward. Another major part of this program, and one there that I know we talked about back in August, was ball field lighting. You have a large number of ball fields with some dated lighting that doesn't allow you to host district regional events. We have the capability to design ball field lighting to meet whatever standards you would like to meet. This is engineering work that we did on Smith Wills Stadium down in Mississippi. But as part of the IGA process, we would engage with you on determining the lighting and what you would like.
And let me also add that the other thing we can do with this, the flexible part of the investment grade audit process is that it allows us to do multiple iterations. That's what's cool about this process. So if you want to evaluate like if you've ever seen Alabama's football stadium lights, like where they've got the flashing lights that are colors, we can tell you what that premium is versus just straight new LED lights. And we can look at TSAA standards versus, different lighting outputs. And so we can give you kind of all those permutations and like how that impacts the overall project. That's very easy to fold in this project, which probably leads us to the next slide. Oh no, we got one more in here, so that's fine. Go ahead, do you want to?
And then the third phase of the project, as we see in the RFP and we would look at is your buildings and other opportunities. We would evaluate basically anything that you have a utility bill for, but we would like to look at your buildings, wastewater treatment plants, traffic signals. If you're interested in solar and expanding your solar opportunities, we'd be glad to look at that as part of the IGA process. But we'll look at opportunities to apply technology, again, LED lights, HVAC controls, HVAC retrofitting, water conservation measures to reduce your utility bill in these buildings, and again, free up additional savings that you can use to tackle other projects. And then kind of the fun part, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on some of the things that you'd be interested in, but the fun part for us is really looking at what are some of the potential projects that can be funded by savings from this project. Obviously, the street lights are very important because that's where most of your savings are going to come from, in addition to savings from the buildings. But those savings can be used to fund your ball field lighting improvements. Back in August, we talked about traffic cameras, public Wi-Fi, whatever deferred maintenance can be anything with a building envelope, roofs, some that we frequently do with buildings, windows, doors, comfort issues. I know we've discussed there's some comfort issues, for example, in this building that we could look at, and solar has been something else depending on your interest in that. Are there other priorities that y'all have or you've thought about that you would like to us take a look at? Now, I have heard mention, I know the community center is probably a priority, maybe a fire hall. Those are things that with the savings that we could, with the investment grade audit, we'd take a really hard look at and come back to you on options of the issues that you're facing there. We look at the project, and as part of the investment grade audit, we'll look at all the funding sources available to you. Obviously, the huge part of funding the project will be the savings that you'll realize from the utility cost savings and operational cost savings. But we'll also look at federal sources, whether it's funding through the USDA, the CARES Act, TVA rebates. There's not a whole lot there, maybe some for UV lighting. We'll look at state grants from TDEC, the Department of Environment Conservation, and CMAQ, which helps cities with pollution, air quality control. And then the federal 179D tax credits, which we as a developer would be available to us in purchasing equipment, and we would pass on the savings to you. With my background in state government, where I spent the previous 13 years, it's going to be my job to help you identify what opportunities and grants fundings that may or may not be out there for you that would be of interest for you.
So I think it's worth mentioning, we just had a call with Columbia today on their funding sources, and we're cobbling together. To be clear, we're not replacing your financial advisor. You probably work with one of two or three that are active in the state. We've just seen a lot through this process and can help provide advice on different cities and how they've structured it. Columbia would be a great person to talk to about some of their funding sources. They used USDA for part of it, take grants for other parts of it. They're actually able to do most, like over half of it with grants, and then a significant low. So I think it'd be worth exploring how to put those two together, because that further enhances your savings. I think we're clear that we want to be the most cost-effective solution for you for the entire package, and that's how we built PATH from the ground up, was to make sure that we could be competitive from start to finish. You know, it's just procuring equipment, or if it's installing it, or if it's funding sources. And so we've been pretty successful in working with that. And I think it's worth mentioning on that list of customers, we're happy for you to call anybody on that list. We can provide a name of any of those dots, and you're welcome to talk to the folks about their experience with us in these projects, and their project.
This is an example of a project development tool. We are awarded and have the opportunity to work with you in the investment grade audit. We will, of course, do all of our analysis, employee crews and engineers led by Russ to come look at your buildings, and look at
That'll
whatever.
be me on site. Like that's, I want to make sure that's clear. As the owner of the company, I'm also actively involved in the engineering. But also, we also have a team of engineers that work with me.
Absolutely. But we'll come back and through that IGA process, we want to hear from you and what your priorities are, what you want us to look at. Again, anything utility bill, what issues you're having with your current buildings, what deferred maintenance you have, what we want to hear from you and what your priorities are. And we'll come back with a project development tool like this, and we'll help you sort through it, but it'll be recognize the opportunities for savings and what the cost of those are, and also recognize here are the other opportunities that you're interested in. And as a result of that, we'll put together, a revenue neutral to revenue positive program for you that's over the shortest term possible, just depending upon your priorities here. But through this process, we'll try to help you tackle as many projects as possible. And because of our different overhead structure, we are able to pass on, or for you to retain more of the savings.
This isn't the way we design this. If you look at this down at the bottom, our fee is clearly delineated, and we've kind of designed this as an open book contracting process where you see the individual cost structures for each energy conservation measure, and then our fee is clearly shown so that you're clear on what you're paying for and how you're paying it. So I think we do that. That's a little different than the industry standard, but it's a core part of who we are and how we've been successful.
We kind of want to talk about the investment grade audit now, and we're proposing a two-phase IGA process. The first one would be at no cost to the city of Kingston, but in phase one, and again, we've already taken a look at your streetlight program that we briefed you on back in August, and we are confident we know there is an opportunity here, but we would use the phase one IGA to take a deeper dive on the things that we haven't completed yet. So we would dive in deeper on the streetlight project. We would begin our negotiations with REU. We, since the REU and Rockwood program, we've looked at some other alternative models here that we think could be advantageous to you. We would look at those ball field lighting upgrades and provide different options there. Look at wastewater. As Russ mentioned earlier, we would bring somebody in to look at your wastewater treatment facility, one of our colleagues, to examine what opportunities there are to be more efficient and save funds there. We look at wastewater solar opportunities, building upgrades, and any other mutually agreed items that you tell us you want us to take a look at that might have potential energy savings there.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. We kind of taking a step back as we've heard feedback from the city that there might be more things, and so we figured this would be a good chance to kind of recenter on what's important and maybe put together some numbers on what this looks like and get further refinement. And then that phase two IGAs, when we did the detailed like permitting and engineering design for those things you're interested in. It won't hurt our feelings if the only thing we end up doing streetlights, or we can do everything. And so we'll kind of give you those options and kind of separate that into two phases. Is kind of how we felt was maybe the best way to put this forward after hearing feedback. So, but to be clear, that first phase is at no cost. But you ultimately have to pick us or one of your other responders to decide which route you're going to do. So that's ultimately where you're going to go is you need to pick your best responder and who you think can get you to the finish line to the best of your needs.
And then once we complete that, we come back to y'all, talk about next steps and what you want to pursue. We would proceed with phase two of the IGA, where we actually do the final engineering and design, and we would get bids for installation, major equipment purchases finalized. As you see in a moment, we'll come back to you at that point with the final contract. And at that point, our costs will be guaranteed and your savings will be guaranteed. Kind of looking at next steps and a quick timeline here. If the board approves an IGA next week, and again, we're asking for the opportunity to work with you, and if we're fortunate enough to be selected, we would begin work immediately on the IGA after you notify us of selection. So over the next couple months from now to February, we would begin engage with REU on a new streetlight agreement. We would work on providing you solid budgets and all the items in phase 1 that we've talked about, and we'll come back and present final findings for the phase 2 approval. And then the next couple months from February to April, we would complete phase 2 of that IGA. We come back to you for final contract approval after we've talked through with you what your priorities are and finalized on what's going to be included in the contract. Again, at that point, we would guarantee the cost and savings for you. And obviously, as part of there, we would discuss financing, the way we're going to finance the project. Then on this timeline, we see you being able to realize some savings as early as April. We would begin work in April and complete everything by July 2021. So going into the new fiscal year, you start realizing significant opportunities there. With this, I would ask, and we want to talk to you about what your priorities are through this. If there's elements like streetlights and ball field lighting that you want us to kind of move up in the process, that's something that we would look at and trying to expedite for you. But we think if we move forward, we can have a pretty expeditious timeline and help you start having those operational energy efficiencies, improvements to your buildings, advantages of streetlights being installed, and those savings pretty fast. Just to kind of wrap up, just want to again talk about some of the advantages we think and why we hope you'll choose us. Again, we're a trusted partner with over 20 public sector clients across Tennessee and Mississippi. We'll be glad to provide you a list of those and contact information. We'd be glad for you to contact any of those cities, counties, school systems to talk about the work that we have done. As we mentioned, we are the most experienced streetlight company in the TVA footprint. We've changed out more streetlights in this area, and that's important because that's a huge component of this project, because that's where your savings are going to be generated. Again, our company was kind of born out of frustration with the traditional model, and our overhead or our cost structure is a little different. So that means that more savings are going to be returned to the city that you can use in funding infrastructure upgrades like new roofs, windows, ball field lighting, whatever you choose to spend your money on. But that does allow you to maximize your savings. Another thing, we're product agnostic. We don't manufacture equipment. We're not trying to sell a specific brand of equipment. We will, with you, select the best equipment, the best vendors. We use name brand equipment for streetlights, for HVAC upgrades, whatever it is. But we'll work with you and the city staff to determine what's best for you in each specific situation. We're in the process of actually kind of mopping up a mess down in Mississippi, in Hinds County, that's Jackson, Mississippi, where a competitor installed a large number of their products and kind of left with a mess. So Path Company for the past 6 months has been engaged with Hinds County, Mississippi on cleaning up, working on their HVAC controls and HVAC systems to get them to perform where they should be. And it's to the point where Hinds County has actually hired Path to manage their facilities going forward there. And then the performance guarantee, we guarantee our work when we come back with that final contract. Again, we will be at the point where we'll have a guaranteed price. It's not going to go up on you. And we'll guarantee those savings that you're going to realize so that you can perform the other infrastructure upgrades and address the deferred maintenance and other issues that we talked about. Again, I think the big thing that distinguishes Path is our 100% customer satisfaction, our real focus on customer service. Russ and I are the two people will be with you throughout the process. Obviously, we have a team of engineers, but we'll be with you throughout the project, and somebody that you can contact along with Brad as we move forward. What questions do y'all have for us tonight, or things that we didn't answer, or things you'd like to know more about?
I don't have any.
No. We do think there's a real opportunity here. We do think, again, we appreciate the opportunity to work with you this summer with David and Mayor and do that preliminary analysis for you, we do see a significant opportunity here. We think, getting to work with you over the past few months, we realize there's several opportunities here, like most cities, in terms of deferred maintenance. And with our experience and expertise, we think we can help you solve a number of those problems going forward. And we certainly welcome the opportunity to do that. I think we're all passionate about the project. Brad's here local, lives in Kingston. Russ's family here in Roane County. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my connections with Alton Bird Park. My dad and Alton Bird, who's a former councilman, I don't know if any of you knew him. I didn't, because he died before I was born, but Mr. Bird and my dad were first cousins, so I'm kind of passionate about the opportunity to work here and be part of things y'all have going forward in Kingston.
All right, does anybody got any questions? All right, thank you, guys. We'll be making some decisions here pretty soon on which way we're going to go.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. If you have any questions or need more information, please feel free to reach out to Brad, Russ, or I. We'll leave some more information here at City Hall with David. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you guys for coming out. Now, number 4, discussion of sewer charges at 428 West Ray Street. Phil Harvey, property owner. I'll turn it over to you, David.
Thank you, Mayor. You all have a pretty lengthy memo in your packet about this situation. I believe that Mr. Harvey is on the call. Kevin and I had a conference call with him a couple weeks ago, and I know that Kevin's had a couple of conversations with him, but we did have a talk with him. He asked to bring his issue before you. Obviously, the format of our meeting changed since that conversation. Like I said, I believe he's on the line, and if he is, Mr. Harvey, I'll give you an opportunity to talk to council.
I hope I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It seems pretty petty after all that talk about saving money there, but $40, $50 a month is a lot of money when you're trying to retire. And it seems like every time you turn around, somebody's wanting more money. But anyway, the first few years we lived here, they charged us sewer. And we decided that after we paid it for a while, we decided to go ahead and have it hooked up. So we paid our money to have it hooked up, and they came out and they said, well, Mr. Harvey, it's not available to you. And you'd have to have a pump, and you'd have to do this, do that. And he said the pumps that we've put in the past haven't worked like they should. And so we'll just consider it unavailable to you, so we'll take it off your bill. And so I said, that's fine. Well, that lasted roughly 19 years, going on 20, I guess, and I haven't paid it. And then they come up last month and started charging me again. And they came out. I talked to Keith there, and he said, well, the bottom line is whoever told you that to take it off the bill wasn't authorized to take it off the bill. And that just sounded kind of strange to me. But, that's neither here nor there. You'd think they didn't charge me for 20 years and they just all of a sudden jumped up and started doing it again. I have a basement with my washer and dryer, shower, code, sink, all that stuff down there. It's not a finished basement, but I use it a lot. And so if I ran my sewer out the front of the house instead of like it is now out the back, all I could hook up to it would be my upstairs kitchen and my bathroom upstairs. And it doesn't make any sense to be paying for it when I have hopefully a perfectly good septic system that's going to work for another 20 years. And I don't know, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. They did give me a number in Knoxville to call, and I called, and that was a useless number that told me they didn't have anything to do with sewer systems. So they gave me to this guy, Will Luke, that's supposed to be a septic system guy in Rome County. And he pretty much just brushed me off and didn't even want to talk to me. Told me that he didn't know anybody to talk to, that if I wanted to talk to somebody, I needed to talk to my state representative, that he's the only one that he thought would be able to answer any questions for me. They gave me this piece of paper that shows the ifs, ands, and buts about hooking to the sewer system. And it doesn't have any dates or anything on it. I was hoping maybe it had a date where they had revised it, where I could maybe be grandfathered in, where this wouldn't apply to me until my sewer system quit working. And then wouldn't have any choice but to hook up to it. But other than that, I guess that's all I know to say about it.
David, what's the problem? I mean, what are we trying to solve here?
Well, and Kevin is on the call as well, and I'll let him answer any questions if you have it. Basically, we have a situation where, and I cited the two sections of the municipal code where this was applicable, but we have a situation where he is within 500 feet of the sewer line, and he is correct that for a long period of time, for whatever reason, he wasn't charged. I can't speak for who made that decision or why that decision was made, only to say that there is nothing in the municipal code that gives us the authority not to charge him. So, he is right that because of where his house is and where the sewer is, it's below the pitch, that he would have to have a pump to utilize the sewer there. But it's we have other places, other customers who have to do that. And again, I'm not discounting anything he said about his septic system working fine or the fact that he was taken off. But again, it's just a situation where we have no short of council changing these statutes, we have no authority to not charge him sewer. So that's why we when we discovered this, we put it back on. And again, Kevin can explain the technical issues involving his sewer certainly better than I can if you have any questions of him.
Sandy, what do we have legal wise with you, the attorney?
Well, Mr. Mayor, what has happened in the past is the reason why you have that ordinance to begin with is because the federal and state governments sent us this ordinance and says this is what you have to have in the way of an ordinance. And one of the things I was listening to Mr. Harvey talking about perhaps a change in the ordinance, but I'm not sure that under the Clean Water Act and those kind of things, I'm not sure that you have much leeway to even do a change. The ordinance came to us already written, and as a matter of fact, sort of as an aside, that was back when we had to read those things, and we had to read that twice, and it's a fairly lengthy ordinance. But I don't think you have got much leeway to change your ordinance. The ordinance was designed by the federal government to create a situation where when the sewer line is close to you, that they want you hooking up and not using septic tanks. So that's where it is anyhow, Mayor.
It seems by our state law and federal law that we're kind of got our hands tied with it.
I don't think you've got a lot of leeway as a municipal water company.
Anybody else got any suggestions? I mean, I don't know what else we could do by what the state law says.
Well, several years ago, well, probably 15 years ago, they decided to condemn our property and they were going to put a sewer system behind our house. And evidently somebody objected to it and they throwed it out. But there was several people on our street back here that have basements that would have benefited from the sewer system being behind the house. But for whatever reason, they threw that out. And of course now it'll probably cost 3 times as much to put that system in as it would have when they condemned our property before over it. But it's not an issue that I, yeah, now I'm starting to have to pay it again. It's the issue that for 20 years I didn't have to pay it, and nothing has changed. I don't understand, why it's different now than it was a month ago.
Sandy, do you remember when that ordinance was brought to us?
I do not, but it's been a long time now, Mayor. The ordinance, and I'm not looking at that particular section of the code, but it shows when it was adopted. David, I don't know whether you've got that readily available to you there in your office or not.
I could pull it up. I don't have it right in front of me, but if you'll give me just a second, I can get it.
I mean, I just was curious if it was before Mr. Harvey stated before they told him he didn't have to pay for it. If it was before or after that. Because I can't remember when it happened. Kevin, what would it take to put sewer back in there like he's talking about?
To be honest with you, Mayor, really don't know. We just have to look and see what the distance was and what the amount of customers that would potentially be able to hook onto that to try to get a size of line that we would need to get there. I can tell you this, I think the closest manhole that we could tie into would probably be Packers from there is a manhole in their parking lot. I believe that's the closest manhole. But we would have to go from there and we would just have to look at the call and the distance that we
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Wright.
How many customers do we have that are within 500 feet that are charged sewer currently? Does anybody know?
I don't know. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. Kelly or Kevin might. I know we pulled that, and we don't have a lot. We do have some, and we pulled that number. To go back real quick, Mayor, that was looks like that was adopted in 1991. So again, I don't know what caused somebody to deviate from that, but again, we don't. We don't have whoever did it didn't have the authority to do it. So, but Councilman Wright, to answer your question, we did pull that. We could get those numbers again. It's not a lot, but there are a handful. I would say would be an accurate description of customers that are within that situation.
Yes, so that would be the as Sandy would say, the slippery slope. If we bend the rules, every person that is currently having to pay will also want to have that done for them. And then we would be going against the ordinance that the federal and state government sent to us. So I'm not sure what the solution is.
Well, it would cost me several $1,000s to revamp all of my sewer to the front of my house, or to put in the pump and have all the lines and all that stuff run to make it work.
Sandy, do we know if the state has looked at that law, to update it or anything?
Actually, I was looking at the same time the city manager was, and he correctly references the 1991 code. Actually, this probably was passed before that because it became a part of the recodification of the city code in 1991. And of course, when you look at the beginning of it, where it's section 18201 purposes and policy, and it talks about why we have these things, and it says to prevent the introduction of pollutants into the municipal wastewater treatment system, and it references the Federal Water Pollution Control Act, the General Pre-Treatment Regulations, 40 CFR Part 403, and other applicable federal, state laws and regulations. So, and it goes on to use the definitions in the Federal Water Pollution Control Act in 18202. Like I said, what I remember about that, Mayor, more than anything else was we just got handed this and says this is what you will adopt as an ordinance. You can imagine that the city council, even back then, wasn't real happy with the idea that somebody just told them this is the way it's going to be. But we sometimes run into that. We call those things unfunded mandates when they're rolling down on top of little bitty towns like the city of Kingston.
Oh, it
Sandy.
looks-
Was when we moved into our house.
So Sandy,
So-
this isn't just the city of Kingston's sewer and water service. This is any sewer company is also mandated to do this.
It was my understanding at the time, and still is, that these regulations were mandated by state law because of the federal law. It wasn't something that somebody on city council, and like I said, it predated 1991. That's just when we recodified. So it's been there since the 80s.
Well, it seems like our hands are tied. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I had to guess, I would say this was part of some larger effort at some point to start weaning municipalities off of septic systems in more populated areas. It is kind of an across the board thing. There may be some deviation from utility to utility, but I think the basic premise is probably there about anywhere you go. In our case, it's not to say that something couldn't be done. I don't know how tied our hands are ultimately, but anything you did do obviously would have to be done as ordinance because this was passed as such. The problem, what I would caution would be, we've probably, while we have a few people now that are in this situation, we probably had many over the years who have become sewer customers because of this, that at one time had septic systems. So, if we deviate it from now, then, all those people in years past, it would be kind of hard to justify that. Again, it's just a matter, it's not that we don't sympathize with this situation. We do. I understand where he's coming from. It's just a matter of, within the framework of these ordinances, we really have no option but to charge him sewer unless those are changed.
Another thing, I don't know if this is important or not, but I know that whenever you go to sell a property and say the buyer of that property is getting a VA loan, VA will force you to hook up to sewer if it is available. So just a little side note.
Well, right now, I don't see that there's anything we can do by what our ordinance says and what the state and federal law says. Kevin, if you could, I'll put David, have Kevin look and see what it would take to get sewer back there. Just kind of an idea, ballpark, to see what it would take to do it.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
First, is he just being charged a minimal sewer fee since he's not using sewer? Is there just a flat amount, minimal sewer fee that he's being charged per month?
No, it's a percentage.
So it varies every month?
I would assume. I've only got a bill one time so far.
Yeah, I don't have his bill in front of me to know what it was exactly, but he would be charged, his sewer obviously is generated based on his water usage, and whether he has it or not, he's being charged for it. And again, that's the only way we have to bill sewer.
But he's not being asked to pay back all this time that he hasn't paid. He's just going forward from now.
Correct. Yeah, that was, he was not billed for a long time. That was our mistake. And, we wouldn't have any grounds to go back to him and try to hold him responsible for something the city did.
Well, see, that's what they told me when they took me off of it 20 years ago was, well, we can't go back and pay you back for all the money that you've already spent with the city. But my bill went from around $38 to $100, $103 last month.
One question I've got. We get Marcia or Michelle or Kelly to figure out how many customers we have that are paying the sewer and not getting the service. And let's look at it. Because I don't think it says, Sandy, on something like that, could you put a minimum bill since they're not paying sewer? I mean, or do you have to charge them just like you would somebody that's taking sewer?
I defer to David because he's looked at that a little more carefully than I have as to exactly what the rate is. And of course, that's 18,203. And I'm just looking very quickly, Mayor, at.
Sandy, while you're looking at that, I'll just say, everything I've ever been told is that we have to bill our customers uniformly. The method, unless, you're looking at something like a wholesale customer that you have a contract with in terms of regular customers, if we bill one based on, based on their water usage, then we have to bill all by that method, same as if we did a flat fee. So, I'll certainly yield to you if you know something I'm not thinking of, but I don't think we have the authority legally to charge anything outside of our published rates and fees.
I think this ordinance does say, I was looking at it, the owner shall be responsible for the payment of sewer rates under such rate schedules as the city may from time to time adopt by appropriate ordinance or resolution. So I think you're bound by what your ordinance, what your rates structure is right now.
Gentlemen, Mr. Mayor, we got into this with the Center's Farm people wanting a separate rate because they had grinder pumps. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
But even at that time, they're still using the sewer. Let's look more. I'd like to know how many people we've got that are paying for sewer that's not hooked up. You guys can come up with that number, and we can look at what we might want to do.
And Mayor, if I may interrupt for a second, you might have the city manager go to the state and see if they think there is any flexibility on behalf of the cities with regard to this ordinance. I think you're going to find out that they're going to say no, but Mr. Harvey deserves an answer as to what they might say.
Right, and we've been on through it with the water and wastewater board the last couple of months, so sure they'd be glad to hear from us again. All right, so Mr. Harvey, we'll get some more information and get back with you on that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your time. And I know $50 don't sound like much to a lot of people, but like I said, it'd be nice to retire here in the next year or so. And they just keep wanting more and more money, and it just seems to go farther, shorter distances every day.
But we'll get back with you on some of that stuff. We'll get some answers from the state and see what we can do.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right,
Thank you much.
number 5, discussion of sewer and stormwater infrastructure at 615 North Kentucky Street. City Manager, Mr. McPherson, Matt Caldwell.
Thank you, Mayor. And I've brought you up to speed on some of this. We've had some ongoing discussion with Mr. Caldwell, who is on the call, and we'll give him a chance to jump on here in a second. But as I noted in my memo in September, as part of his effort to get this property financed, I sent him a letter stating that there was infrastructure on the property, and that was, like all other infrastructure, our responsibility to maintain should anything happen to it. I still agree with that basic sentiment, but in looking back through some old minutes, we stumbled across some minutes from May of 1985, which I gather was about the time that the building that is there now was being proposed. It used to sit, apparently, I'm sure you all know this, closer to the road, and when it was relocated, it was going to be put above a sewer and stormwater drain. And there was some conversation about that. Ultimately, there was a motion to attach a condition to the deed. Was the way the motion was read. I'll let Sandy speak to that aspect of it in a minute. But the intent of it was that the city would be held harmless for any damages to the property that were caused by that line being underneath the building. We've had a conversation with Matt about this, and we're in the position that we have a sewer line, which, by the way, has been lined. It has been reconditioned, so it's probably got a very long lifespan ahead of it. There's also a storm drain under there, and we're in the position of it's our it's our infrastructure. We are responsible for it, and probably if anything catastrophic did happen, our most logical bet would be to relocate it. Our biggest concern is we don't want to be held responsible for a building or a parking lot that was knowingly put on top of our infrastructure. So that's kind of where we are. As I told Mr. Caldwell, because council took this action by unanimous vote, only council could rescind it. But that's kind of our position. Sandy, I know you can explain that better than I can, so I'll turn it over to you. And of course, we have Kevin on here and also Mr. Caldwell as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. When we first started looking at this, and yes, there is a sewer. There are two sewer lines. There's a storm sewer line and there is a sanitary sewer line that has been identified as crossing these properties and actually goes under these buildings. Mr. Brown probably remembers that one of those, especially that storm sewer line, is very, very deep anyhow. But as far as I don't know what was going on back in 1985. Apparently the minutes do reflect that there was a special call meeting and there was a suggestion made that something be, quote, attached to the deed. And as Councilman Wright knows, you don't attach things to deeds to begin with. And what I suspect the intent was that the property owner would enter into some sort of an agreement with the city, which allowed him to build over the sewer line. I don't know what happened about all of that. What I know is we have the sewer lines, we have the easements, and I think Mr. Caldwell in some of our conversations has said he knows that the easements are there. He just doesn't want to be responsible for our situation with regard to our sewer lines. Well, you all have the sewer line, and no matter where they are, you have the responsibility to maintain them. Apparently have been maintaining them for some period of time. So I don't think that part of it is an issue at all. I do think that there is a potential issue that, and probably a middle ground of somewhat is, yes, Mr. Caldwell has sort of indicated, and this was in preliminary discussions, that he would be glad to enter into an agreement which said that if the sewer line did need to be relocated, if the city was relocating it, that they would make an easement available to the city to do that. That's obviously a possibility from what the city manager is talking about. On the other hand, and it is a kind of a really strange thing, Mr. Caldwell, I think if he buys this property, doesn't want to be responsible for the sewer line. On the other hand, the city should not be responsible for any damages that are done if something catastrophic happened that damaged his building. So I think it's a sort of a each one of the parties has got something to say about that now. And my suggestion would be ahead of time, like I said, Mr. Caldwell's here to speak for himself, is that you all formalize the arrangement that is already there. City's got a sewer line. City, if it needs to be relocated, it can. The city won't hold Mr. Caldwell responsible for anything on the sewer line, and Mr. Caldwell won't hold the city responsible. I think that's probably a sort of a wrap for all of it. But that's just one opinion of mine.
So Matt, what are you needing from us?
Well, our biggest issue is financing. The sewer line's been there for 40 years, roughly. It's working. The storm drain's been there for 40 years. It's working. The former owners of the building that was sold to the property that was sold to the Harrells and then to Mr. Wade were Jim and Arthur Rivers, and the next door neighbor was Don and Joe Woody. And I think what probably happened is everybody's trying to figure out how to get a new grocery store and also how to not spend too much money at the time. I'm just guessing. But Mr. Wade knew nothing of an easement relative to this attachment to a deed, the guy I'm buying it from. And we did a title search for the bank to make sure we could get financing, and there were no easements of record, still no easements of record. But we recognize that the city has an easement by prescription or whatever, and we're happy that if it ever needs to be relocated, to go ahead and put in writing today that we would give an easement over the property for both the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. Since it serves multiple customers and we might want to sell a building at some point in time, we don't want to be responsible for a municipal sewer or stormwater system. So that's it in a nutshell. We can't get financing, I don't think, unless we get it resolved. We got two businesses waiting at bay, AutoZone and an Ace, which we think will add value to the city. And we want to get it accomplished for both of us. And our suggestion is to rescind the 85 motion, let the letter that's of record stand, and we agree to enter into, as soon as I buy the property, as part of that, we'll have covenants, restrictions, and to add an agreement that grants the city at their discretion a location to relocate either the stormwater or the sanitary sewer if it ever needs to be. I think all of this discussion hopefully is moot at the end of the day, because it continues to work well and we get two businesses paying a lot of sales tax. So that's where we stand. We want to work it out, but we do have the restriction of we probably can't work it out if we can't get financing, and it'll just be an empty building as it sits today.
Sandy, can we go back and rescind the motion that was made in 1985?
Yes, that's the reason why I suggested to you because I'm not sure that like I said, that motion was made at a special call meeting, and it asked for things that you just don't do, attaching something to a deed. The fact is that there's an easement there, has been there, and as I said, I haven't heard Matt address it directly, but if you all are willing to do that, and he's willing to acknowledge the easements, two, to authorize a relocation if necessary, and three, for both parties to hold one another harmless from any liability that arises out of that. I think you could get it done pretty easily.
Matt, will that satisfy you for financing?
I think that'll get it done.
Does anyone on council have anything to say about that? I think everyone on this call is in favor of helping you get whatever you want to get there.
Well, I appreciate it.
And Mayor, I'll just say I agree with Sandy completely. Obviously, you know, the 1985 motion would need to be rescinded, and we don't have I don't have a problem with that. We don't at this level. If you do that, we're certainly fine with the idea that if a line needs to be relocated, if any line in town needs to be relocated, that's on us. That's our expense. And I think Sandy's right. The biggest thing in rescinding this is to make sure that with it comes that hold harmless agreement from both parties, that one won't hold the other responsible for what they have.
Does anyone on council have anything else to say about that?
Mr. Mayor, just to throw another wrinkle in this isn't the only one that we have like this.
Oh, really? Someone, I mean,
The sewer goes through Mr. Kurt Scanlon's property also, where Scanlon Lumber Company used to be.
Oh, underneath. Okay, all the way back to
underneath all of his sheds, and he's built another little building back there. When he bought the industrial building from us and moved out of that, he needed something about the sewer. He wanted to put up a storage shed or some kind of extension to the office. And I can remember we allowed somewhat of the same deal. If you don't hurt us, we won't hurt you, but we have to come in and fix it. We've got to fix it. So we've got that same thing out just right down the street on the next block, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Stan, is there any way you could have something like drawn up for us by Tuesday where we could you might motion to go back?
We certainly will try, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, man, we'll try to
have it put on the agenda, and then we'll try to work through some language between now and then, and hopefully, you know, we do what we have to do.
All right. Well, let's hope let's get this done. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Number 6, we're continuing with water and sewer. Discussion of adoption of water and sewer specifications. Mr. Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is something that, and I'll let Kevin jump on this in just a second, give you a little more background on it, because I've had him here and hadn't given him the chance to speak much. So I don't want to seem like I'm wasting his time, but in a nutshell, this is something that we're required by the state to do. It's something we don't have. We have something similar, very old, probably back from 1991. In our municipal code, but this gives a set of uniform specifications for water and sewer. So, you know, in the future, if a developer is looking to put in a development, for example, we can hand them a document. Here is our specifications. And again, we're required by the state to do it. We don't have it now. So it's really not something that we have a lot to, you know, leeway on, but I think it is a good thing for us in terms of dealing with developers that they know up front what's expected, and we have some standards that we can point to. And that will be that's next month. This is that's something. Okay. Yeah, that's something we've been working on internally. These on here tonight are something that we're obligated by the state to pass. So, and Kevin, if you want to expand on that, feel free.
So let me just add to that, everyone. Where this come about is of course D.R. Horton come up with the houses that they're wanting to build in Centers Farm, and they got the question about what our sewer specs was, what kind of pumps we were requiring them to have, this, that, and other. When I got to looking, we didn't have none. So like David said, talk, and we decided that this would be a good idea. Of course, we do know that we've had we have some possible future development coming. And like I say, sort of pretty much what David covered. It's just saying this is what we got to have, or what we require as a city or as a utility, and it makes it across the board. It don't matter who's doing it. It's the same rules, same guidelines for everybody.
All right, does anybody got any questions on that? All right, seeing none, we'll add that to the agenda, to the water board agenda, David. All right, number 7 is continued discussion of proposed median island on Cumberland Street. Ms. Stockton.
Yes, I had spoke with Tim Clark today, and that project is still something that he's working on right now, so there won't be anything brought to the council tonight.
Okay, so you're not going to bring anything up tonight on it?
No, it's not. It's still there'll be changes made to it and updates, and he wasn't prepared to present
Ms.
that.
Stockton, you still there?
Can you not hear me?
I can hear.
I can hear.
I can hear. Can't see her.
Tim said that he would bring that back up at a later time, but right now that's not something that he would present to the council, so it won't be moving forward.
Okay, good.
Mr.
I mean,
Mayor.
good. We'll bring it forward later. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Just one thing, before we dive
Yes.
into that, any kind of study or plan before, I sure hope I have spoken to 2 of the property owners who wanted to come tonight. They are strictly against this. One of them is Mr. Reynolds, and the other one is Kingston Drug Company. And that's 50% of the people on the street that's got property owners. Mr. Reynolds, as a matter of fact, if there was any major discussion, wanted to call in tonight. Kinzer's is in the planning of putting in a drive-through on the side of their building. The building that was torn down is only the concrete. The rest of it belongs to Mr. Reynolds and to Kinzer's in between and behind. Mr. Reynolds says he's going to renovate the front of his building and that he would like to meet someone, whatever proposal. I gave him a copy of the drawing that we were furnished a couple months ago, but both of those have said that they didn't know anything about it and didn't think it would work and it would hinder people from coming into their business. So if you've got anything, I would suggest that Tim go and talk to those people and show them whatever it is before it gets back to council.
Just to add on to that, I had spoken.
I think she had.
Sorry. Just to add on to that, I had spoke to Mr. Hamby today, and I had also gave him my number to be able to reach out to Mr. Reynolds. That's some of the things that I think was some of the consideration of making sure that the business owners were happy with any kind of improvement. So I think the first steps would be just working on the improvement of the water in the drainage system, not the island. So that would still be the improvements of Cumberland Street, but that's something that Tim could talk more on. But just meeting with Tim and also meeting with Mr. Hamby, that was the discussion today, and he seemed very pleased with that, just moving forward in that step.
I'll text you and Tim both, Vice Mayor, Mr. Reynolds' his cell phone number too, so that you can contact him.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So number 8 is discussion of approval to apply for the 2020 Public Entity Partners Property Conservation Reimbursement Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those grants that we apply for, try to apply for every year. Used to be through TML, now Risk Management, now Public Entity Partners. This is one of those 50% grants. We'll pay up to $4,000. What we're seeking is to apply to hopefully get reimbursement for expenses that we've already made for security improvements to the Southwest Point Visitor Center. So we have spent the money, we have done the work. We're just wanting to apply to see if we might get lucky and get up to $4,000 of that back.
Good. Any discussion on that? Okay, we'll add that to the agenda. Number 9 is discussion of a petition for speed bumps on Sunrise Drive.
We have a citizen petition, and that has been received. You have a copy of that in your packets. It does meet the requirement of over 51% of the homeowners on the road. They have requested speed humps, so we're bringing that to you for approval.
And they have the 51%.
They do.
Okay. You know, I got to thinking about that. And, you know, what happens when the interstate backs up and 70 backs up and everybody's taking back roads around and flying over Sunrise and getting back on 70. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. All right, discussion of appointments to the Historic Zoning Commission due to expiring terms.
We have 3 appointments to make. All 3 have indicated that they would like to stay on: Robert Bailey, Hugh Willett, and Bruce Cantrell. Their terms expire at the end of this month, and this would just be a reappointment. We had no other applicants.
Okay. 11 is discussion of appoint the library board due to a term limited vacancy.
We do have a seat on the library board that has term limited off. We advertised it. We received two applicants. We do have a recommendation from the board for one of those. Obviously, it's at council's discretion who gets appointed, but we had 2 applicants, Kerry Willett and Jarrett Houston. This will be an appointment that goes into effect January 1st. So we'll need to fill the vacancy this month to have it done before it's vacated. And again, it is term limited.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All right. Number 12 is discussion of the process for filling an unexpired term resulting from the passing of Councilmember Brackett. So I think in the past, when Councilmember McClure passed away during his term, we not asked for like, I don't know, resume, somebody, it's kind of like we're doing for all of our boards. Is that correct, David?
Yes, we did advertise it, and we asked people to either send a resume or some form of official, notice that they are interested. And then we had the applicants come in, gave them an opportunity to address council, and then ultimately council voted. As you know, the charter specifies that we have 60 days from the date of the vacancy to fill the position, or we have to have a special called election within 120 days. So I don't think anyone is interested, from what I've gathered, in the expense of a special election. So ideally, what you would do and we don't have to have council action to do this, as long as you don't indicate that you'd like to do something else, we can go ahead and advertise it and give people the month of December to submit their intent, and then we can bring those to you in January, as long as we're within that 60-day window, to give folks a chance to come in and get this voted on prior to, I believe the date of our actual January meeting would be 64 days. So we could involve our workshop in January in that, but would either have to do something that night in a special called meeting, or within a couple of days in a special called meeting to stay within that 60-day deadline.
I think what we'll do is go ahead and advertise for that in the month of December, and then in January we'll have a special call meeting after the work session.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Would you consider an alternative to that by advertising? I'm good with that. Advertise and have them submitted by December the 16th. Have a interview scheduled for Thursday the 17th, and have a special called meeting on the 21st. of December.
Hold on one second.
Now, here's where I'm coming from. Here's where I'm coming from. We don't know what's going to happen with the COVID. Okay. We don't know the governor's executive order that allows us to meet as we are now expires the end of December, unless he renews that. I'm just trying to think, and the selfish part of it is that I'll be out of town. I don't have to vote on this position, but it takes 4 votes. We've got 6 members. And if I can't vote by computer in January, then you'll be a member short.
Mayor, another point that will go along with Mr. Brown's idea, and I think it's a good one, is and Councilmember Brown can probably refresh my memory on exactly what the situation was, but I know in years past there was an appointment to a council seat that was voted over and over again before they could get a tie broken. So, you know, with this idea, if we got into a situation where we're at an impasse, that would give us time to try to resolve that and not be a day or two away from the deadline. So if you're good with that, I certainly think that his idea of doing it sooner rather than later is a good one.
The other thing that I didn't mention, I took it upon myself and reached out, being the old election administrator, and checked with the election coordinator today in his office. We sure don't need to go into an election. One, because their estimate was $15,000 to $17,000, and we have 4 voting precincts in Kingston. That means that the courthouse shuts down. That means that the school system shuts down because we use Cherokee and the community centers. And then the other voting precinct is out at Lonville at the church. So there's no way that if we get, and that's what I was thinking too, if we get down to where, and you know, the only one I know for sure that wants it, I've had 1 phone call and you sent me an email. So I know there's 2 out there, and that's the only ones I've talked to. If it was to come to a tie and then we miss this date, we're in trouble again. So, I mean, it may be, I've tried to go through the scenarios on who votes how, which way, and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I just don't think there's a clear path, because I don't know how you all, the rest of you, are going to vote. So I'm just trying to get us in and get it done. The sooner, the better. And we get it out of the way and get the member, and that way that member gets to come to the work session in January and have the council seat.
Well, I don't disagree with your plan, especially with the holidays coming up, and it's not going to be easy to get people together on a special call meeting on the holidays. So what you're talking about is you're talking about doing advertising for 2 weeks. Or
whatever. I don't know where you're talking about advertising at. You know, the Roane County News during that time doesn't have but a limited number of editions. I mean, I think we put it on our website tomorrow.
Yeah, we
people
can
know there's a bank, so they know we're fixing to do this.
Right. I mean, it's not a secret.
Yeah.
To me, on our website and on our Facebook site is going to probably be more advertisement than the Roane County News, but I definitely do agree with Councilmember Brown. I think we need to do it sooner, especially given the fact we only have a 60-day window. We've got the holidays, conceivably bad weather, conceivably tie votes, just for a lot of reasons. I think it needs to be sooner than later. That's my personal opinion.
So, Tony, if I got you correctly, you said they'd be due by the 16th.
I just picked, am I on? Yeah. I just picked that date. I just picked a date. You know, today's the 1st. That gives you 15 days was what I was looking at some sort of advertising. If you put it in the Roane County News, that gives you three editions of the paper. That gives you the 4th, the 9th, and the 11th. It'd be too late to get it in. We couldn't get it in tomorrow. So that gives you 3 there, plus our coverage on our website. And, you know, we formalize all this stuff at our meeting, which is televised next day, and then bring them in the 17th and spend a couple hours. You know, don't know how many we're going to have. That may have to, but we start them the 17th. We may have 10 people. We may have to do it the 17th, 18th, and 19th, you know, to interview people. and then come back on, because of the holidays, on the 21st and have a special called meeting to appoint somebody.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I don't get a vote in any of this, either in your decision or in the vote, but now I can't be there on the 21st, just in case you want to know. That's the one day that Councilman Brown has talked about. I can't be available on the 21st.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, especially given that city attorney, of course, we could have a special called meeting, and contrary to what he's applying, I have his phone number, and I can track him down if we need him. But it might be a good idea that maybe next week in the council meeting, you have some discussion, or even right now, about the process for selection, because I know there's always questions when we're voting on a vacancy on how it can be done, what we can do. And while you have Sandy here in front of you, might be a good time to do this. I will say, just speaking from experience, when I was on county commission, we had a county commission seat that we had to fill, and we had a lot of people put in for it. And a process that we used that I thought worked really well was we did multiple ballots. And, on the first ballot, assuming nobody gets a majority, then the low vote getter would drop off, and then you would keep voting, going through that process until somebody got a majority of the votes. But again, it's up to you all entirely on how you handle that. But I think if any of you have any questions, as far as the process of voting goes, now may be a good time, now or next week, to bring those up, so we're not dependent on Sandy for the 21st.
I would assume too that, there's still specifications that they may not be aware of, that in our advertising, what they have to be, is it 18 or 21? I don't remember.
18.
18, have to be a resident of the city for 1 year.
1 year.
And have to be a registered voter. So, I mean, if somebody comes in, I know that I've spoken to one person, said, well, I'd really like to have it, but I live outside the city. Can I, I own property. Well, property right owners are not allowed to do that. You have to be a resident. So I think we need to specify that, so that we don't have 2 or 3 come up and want it, and then we have to eliminate them for that. And if they put that in their resume, I'm interested in the vacant council seat. I'm a resident of the city of Kingston for 20 years, 21 years old, registered at Ward 1, and here's the reasons I want to be. But remember too, that just because they don't put in a resume, Mr. McPherson, I think that a nomination from the floor is available at any time by any council member.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
So we're just trying to cut some of the clutter out before we get to the actual vote, I guess is what I'm stressing. And I've been in 4 of these already. And had some disappointed. Had one gentleman one time that came with his Bible and his family and his suit on, and he did not get elected that night.
I've been there. So, well, let's do that. Let's go ahead and start advertising tomorrow. Run it until the 16th. We'll do a special call meeting on the 17th. And if it, Sandy, I can't remember how much time do I need to allow for a special call meeting?
Oh, you've got plenty of time if you do that. If you call the meeting at the next meeting, that's not a problem.
So Sandy, the meeting, Tim just said something. The mayor just, sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, not Tim. You mentioned a special call meeting at the 17th. Would we need a meeting then, or that's when I was talking about interviewing? I'm assuming we would have to have it in a meeting format if we told someone that they weren't eligible. If we actually took a vote.
I would think that anything that you all do with regard to this needs to be in a meeting and special call meeting for the purpose of interviewing, and then a special call meeting for the purpose of conducting an election.
All right, thank you.
Would we want to do them both in the same night?
You might want to do them both in the same night.
I can make it a special call meeting for interviews and selection.
I personally think it should be at a different time, because after we do the interviews, we might want a little time to mull over their answers and the different candidates before we actually voted, rather than have to do it immediately after.
Well, the only thing is there, Ms. Humphries, we're running out of time because of the holidays.
Let me ask another question, and I'm going back to when we hired David Bowling as city manager. We conducted those interviews because David and the final, how many did we interview, Tim? 7 one day? Five? On the telephone.
Yeah.
On the telephone. And then we met and eliminated and then came back and then brought the last 2 to a special called meeting and voted on it. Again, I'm thinking about people who are wanting to apply for this position, that we can sit here and agree to a date. And I sure hope that all of us can be in attendance at whichever special called meeting it is. But I'm just wondering how we handle that. Do we go down and ask individual questions, or do we ask canned questions, same questions for each applicant so that they're the same and they can't say that we were partial? Well, we've got to be partial to one or the other because we're going to vote on them. I'm just thinking ahead to try to work out some of the kinks like David was talking about.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, what I think you all need to do about that particular, you want to put your advertisement in, and then at this coming council meeting, I ask the city manager to give you, so that everybody understands what the procedure is going to be, to give you a potential for a procedure. Then you all can massage it at the council meeting if you want to and change it around. But that way you've got something in front of you that says A, B, C, D, and the people who are going to be interviewed all know about that too.
Okay.
Mayor,
So David just got thrown under the bus.
Well, I was just going to add, if my memory serves, when we filled Councilmember McClure's seat, we had the council members submit. If you had a specific question, you could submit it to me. We would make a list of the questions, and we ask the same question to each applicant. I believe that's how we did that. If not, I think that's certainly a good way to do it. We'll do it any way you want. Just a couple of questions real quick. One, and we will get this on our website and on Facebook as soon as tomorrow, but just to keep costs down, and because we're probably not going to get any applicants from that, would you be okay with me just running that in the paper once, just to avoid more cost unnecessarily?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's just like, go ahead.
I was one of the applicants for Councilman McClure's seat, and it was advertised. We sent in our letter of intent. There were canned questions that they were given to each of us. We were brought in one by one, but before that interview process, council members called us individually to ask individual questions. So if you wanted to get more in-depth answers, you could do that on a personal level. But then there were the same questions given to each of us in the interview process that was in front of council.
This is Tony. I'm good with one-time advertising, and Stephanie's right. That's how we did that. And I think that we even offered the questions ahead of time to the candidates, if I remember correctly, so that they didn't stutter around and they had time to get it wasn't a surprise to them, because I don't think any of this should be a surprise.
So how are we going to do it? We're going to do it live, or we're going to do it by Zoom?
I'm good with however.
I mean, next week, next Tuesday, or is everybody coming to the meeting, or are we going to do a Zoom meeting next Tuesday?
I'm good with it, sir.
Well, I'm obviously good with the Zoom. Guys, this virus it's serious. It's not gotten any better. You know, we had one of our people who attends our meetings regularly come down with it just 2 weeks ago. If you will check tomorrow, you'll find some of our friends in our neighboring cities have come down with it. You know, it's hit hard. We increased by 70 yesterday. So I'm good with it again, and I'm assuming that anyone who would qualify for this would be good. You know, it'd be all right with me if we did the interviews on Zoom.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem either. So right now, we'll just plan on having next Tuesday's meeting by Zoom also.
And Mayor, just something I'll throw out, as we start getting in these applicants, we'll screen them for eligibility before we ever send them to you. So you all don't have to try to figure out who's eligible, who not. We'll be happy to take care of that. So.
And get them to correct them too, if they need to be, to make sure that they answer the correct questions. Cause, only difference in this is that Tara and Stephanie and I ran unopposed and got 2,000 something votes. We're fixing to have an election where somebody gets 4 votes as the minimum. And congratulations to you two. You received 70% of the votes. Everybody got about 70%. We had 3,000, I think it was 3,100 or so vote. And I think all of us got 2,000 something. So roughly 70% of the people that voted. But you know how you two girls do. You got a whole lot of single shots.
Okay, I have a question before we wind this up. It was mentioned that someone could nominate someone from the floor, even if they hadn't sent in a letter or whatever. And I'm just curious when this nomination would take place. Would that be at our next council meeting, or would that be when, I mean, surely that wouldn't be the night that we're going to vote on the candidates.
Yep, it would be that night.
That night.
So they could be nominated right then and not have come in, not have answered any questions, not have talked to us, and still be nominated and voted on just like everyone who had done those things.
That's exactly
the way I would say, yes.
And I'll refer to Mr. McPherson.
Well,
You don't have any.
I was just going to say a flip side of that would be that you could have someone submit a letter of interest and not get nominated. So it will all be, whoever gets voted on will be, and Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, will be dependent on who gets nominated at that meeting.
If that's the procedure that you don't have any procedure for any of these kind of things. And so that's the reason, and David has suggested a method, and that's the reason why I suggested that you all have that in writing so that you can refine that to whatever you want. But yes, somebody could come in on the night and say, I'd like to be nominated, and one of you council people could say, okay, I will nominate him. And then it just takes its course.
And Mayor, if it helps, I can have a proposed process written out for you next week that you all could look at and conceivably approve. Here's how we want to do it with the timeline and the process, all that. Okay. We can do that.
Okay, that sounds good. Also, we also need to add the agenda next week, the election of a vice mayor. If you can remember, if you can do that, Mr. Bowling. All right, that's the end of the agenda. Mr. Bowling, do you have anything else? Okay. Anybody else? Stephanie, Tony, Tara?
Just to say, I like this Zoom meeting a whole lot better than trying to watch it on the council webpage.
Yeah, it was a little difficult in the council room with the other computers going and the way Brad had it set up, so it worked out better. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll call this and done for the night.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you.